Lineweber. Okay, I'll try to do it right. And finally, Mr. David Randleman. They're going to give their opening statements in that order, the order that they appear on the ballot, and then the closing statements in reverse order, starting with Mr. Randleman. Now, the League believes that one of the best ways for voters to learn about people who want to be your elected officials is not just to pass the yard signs, not just to look at Facebook pages, but to hear candidates answer your questions that they did not get ahead of time, face to face. This in a civil public forum. Having been in several uncivil public forums lately, I highly prefer this method. It's been a tough time for schools and communities, and there's been a huge focus on schools and school boards. So this is really important. Some people say we're so politically divided, and we're divided about what parents' rights are and what our schools are doing and everything else, that we can't have a civil conversation. But I know that you came tonight because you care about Lindbergh Schools. That's why you're here. And you want to find out as much as you can before you decide who is going to represent you. And I hope that the following league rules will help us to get that done. So the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. They're going to have 1 minute to answer every question. And even if a question is directed first to one person, I've rephrased it so that everybody has a chance to answer it. And we'll sort of change up who goes first, second, third, fourth, so the same person doesn't go first all the time. And finally, they're going to have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Now, here's your job, and you've already done a great deal. We got over 100 questions online, okay? And I went through them, but we've also gotten at least 2 questions that weren't in those questions tonight. So these are your questions. These are not my questions. These are not the school district's questions. These are not the lead questions. They're your questions. So if you think about something as you hear people talk, and you will, please write 1 question on each card, and when you're done, raise your hand so that one of the league volunteers can come and get that question. Fair enough? And if you think of more than one and you want another card, raise your hand again and we will provide that for you. Now, I want you to wait to hold your applause no matter how great somebody is, okay? Till the end, if you can do that. Because my goal is to get as many questions out there and answered as I can get. The timekeeper is Ms. Rebecca Now. She is a tough, no-nonsense woman. She's going to show our candidates a 30-second paddle and then a stop paddle, and I'm pretty good at cutting people off. So watch yourselves, because we're going to be watching you. So I, as your moderator, have had the privilege of combining some of your questions that are very similar and making sure that each candidate has an equal opportunity to answer them. We determined which of your questions we're asking, and my goal was to cover as many different issues and to reflect the sort of volume of your questions. So if I got 20 questions on the same thing, that meant it was really important to me and to ask it. So that's my prerogative. And finally, feel free to record this in any way you want to. This is a public forum. This is your forum, and go ahead and record. So with that said, we're going to start our opening questions, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Alonso. 2 minutes.
Kathleen, thank you, and thank you to the League for having us here tonight to express our opinions and concerns about the Lindbergh School Board. My name is Matt Alonso. I am currently a sitting school board member. I was elected in 2017 for my first term. My wife and I have lived in the district for 20 years, my wife Tracy, and we have 3 children, Amelia, Marissa, and Fisher. Our oldest, Amelia, is a senior at Lindbergh High School. Our middle child, Marissa, she is a sophomore at Lindbergh High School, and then our son, Fisher, is in 5th grade at Dressel Elementary. By profession, I am an educator. I teach math and computer science in the Parkway School District at Parkway North High School. I am a very proud educator. I believe that high-quality teachers are what make a district successful. I believe in the I believe in the teachers in the Lindbergh School District, and I'm proudly supported by them in this campaign. Some would probably say that maybe I have a conflict of interest being a teacher and being on the school board, and I would highly disagree with that. I feel like I bring a perspective to the board which allows me to consider teacher needs and consider student needs, since education is my life. Education is my passion, has been for the last 20 years, and always will remain to be that way. I am very proud to sit up here today as an incumbent candidate for the Lindbergh School Board, and I look forward to sharing more about myself tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Watts.
Thank you, Kathleen. And thank you to everyone attending. I really appreciate it. I am Christy Watts, and I want to let you know, first off, I'm a supporter of public schools, teachers, and all students. I've been a member or a resident for over 20 years. I have 3 daughters, one who has just recently graduated Lindbergh, one who's a junior, and one who is a, what grade is she in? She's in 7th grade. There we go. Now I got all the wiggles out. So I have three daughters here, and I'm very proud of them, and I'm also proud of our school district. To wrap around how I ended up here is through volunteerism. When my oldest daughter started at Kennerly, I was the PTO mom. I became the PTO president. I think my first position was party planner, if we still have that. So that's where I ended up. And then I landed at Sparing, where I was the PTO president there, and then decided to run for the Board of Education. As with Matt, I was elected in 2017. I've been very proud of our work with the hiring of Dr. Lake, with obviously our new high school, looking at our facilities, the new entryways that we have created and built for our elementary schools and for all schools, actually, to keep us a bit safer. And then also, when Matt and I were elected, there was a little bit of a disturbance between our administration and our teachers. And I would like to say, I feel like I have not instrumentally, but I have helped to bridge that gap a little bit. And I think we have very good relations with our teachers. So as for what I do on a day-to-day basis, I have 30 seconds left. I have a background in human resources from the corporate world, and then I also currently practice as a career coach with my own business. And I help people navigate the job world. And so I want to finish with, I am here because I want to do what's best for students, teachers, and staff. And I would appreciate your vote on Tuesday, April 4th, and I'm number 2 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Lawson, and I'll echo the thanks that both the previous speakers have given to all of you and to the League for having us tonight. My wife Megan and I, are St. Louis natives. We have 3 wonderful children in the district. I have Charlotte is in 5th grade at Concord. Genevieve is a kindergartner at Concord, and then my youngest Lex, he's 3, and he's over in ECE West, giving them a run for their money. I am a U.S. Army veteran. I graduated from Festus back in early 2000s and went straight into the military because I was done doing homework. And I joined the military in 2001 and was there when the towers fell. So I joined for an education and caught wars instead. I did 3 tours to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan. And I spent 10 years in the service serving with a great group of folks. The people that I met there from all different backgrounds, all different experiences, all combined together to maximize each other's strengths. It really has formed who I am today. One of my big pieces is ensuring that everybody has a place, everybody belongs, and everybody has strengths that can be used to better everybody. And the job of anyone who is building a team is to play to the strengths of the people on that team. I am a small business owner. I also am a technology leader. I work at Ameren, and I lead a team that does 24/7 IT monitoring, and I'm getting the sign here pretty soon. I am also the chairman of the Young Friends Board for United for Children, which is a charity in St. Louis that focuses on providing resources to early childhood care providers. I am proudly endorsed by the LNEA, LEAP, and or LEAD and MOEP. So again, I appreciate your time, and I would appreciate your vote on April 4th. I'm number 3 on the ballot.
Mr. Lindbergh.
Apologize, I'm new to this. Thanks, Dr. Lake, the district, Women League of Voters. I'm Paul. I moved here 28 years ago. I've been in the Lindbergh district for 28 years. I'm a 15-year father in the Lindbergh Schools. I have one graduate. He graduated in 2013. I have one daughter. She is currently in first grade at Concord. Raising heck with the teachers with that. Having said that, in my first experience with Lindbergh, it was quite different. These are different worlds, and that's part of the reason why I'm running. In that era, we focused very stringently on teaching to the test concepts and the likes. Now, it's different today. In that 15 years, let me get to my volunteerism real fast. 5 years flag football, 3 seasons of baseball at Afton ballparks down there, 2 seasons of junior flyer football, tackle football, teams of 40 kids. Did that for 2 years. I was an intern league administrator for 1 year, and I sat on the board for 1 year. I moved here for academic excellence. I think that when you talk to most of the people, everybody says, I moved here for the schools. I moved here for the schools. I moved here for the schools. Well, you know what? We moved here for the schools, and those schools were based on teaching to the test. So we have to decide whether or not we want that same academic excellence that we had in the past today, and whether or not teaching to the test is more important, less important, or some variance in the middle to growth. And that's why I'm running. Thank you. And I guess I'm not going to wait for her to put up my red sign. So, thank you.
And I'm sorry that I said your name because I have a very good friend named with that name that I said. So I was thinking about it fondly.
You can call me whatever you want as long as you vote for me.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, hi. So thanks again for everyone who's here today and the League of Women Voters. I appreciate you. So I ran last year as well, as some of you might recall, but I'll still go over a little of the background. My wife here, Maki, is with us. A lot of people know me as Maki's husband and not the other way around. But we immigrated here from Israel. And we have 4 kids. We chose Lindbergh Schools because they have the best academics, plain and simple. And they have a great ELL program as well. And our kids started with no English and ended up doing great. My oldest graduated last year, and I'm very proud of him. I want to give something back to the district. I want to give something, put my time into it, and that's why I'm running again. I do believe we need to continue focusing on academics. I think that's what the community wants. And I think we also need to give more support to our teachers. I think they need more tools to deal with changing circumstances and situations and what the students need. I've been endorsed by former board members, Mike Tishlis and Kara Horton, and also by Lindbergh Leaders in Literacy. And yeah, I would like to ask, please consider voting for me April 4th. We were 5 points short last year, so every vote counts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're going to start with the first question, and we're going to start with you, Ms. Watts. So the first question has to do with your commitment to the district and your commitment to public education. So people have written questions like, have all of your children been enrolled in the schools? And I think you touched on that. If not, why not? Do you believe in school choice? Do you believe in using public money for charter schools and private schools? Okay? They're interested in what your position is on public education. So, if you want to start.
This is a lot to wrap around there. So I am definitely a supporter of public education. I think we have excellent public schools in St. Louis. And the reason I say that is because as a career coach and relocation coach, I talk to people across the United States that have to go through application processes. Takes them a month and a half to enroll a student, and then within a family, one child may go to one school district and one to the other because they weren't chosen. I hope the open enrollment will come back later, but I am not a fan of that. And I'm not a fan of charter schools because they can close at any time. It's a business, and there's no accreditation tied to the state of Missouri. And if you don't believe me, you're more than welcome to look at the state of Arizona, which is filled with charter schools. They've actually recently just decided to stop accepting them. It's not doing well there. So let's look at other examples. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson, what about you?
Absolutely. Turn my microphone on. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of public education. I grew up, my mom was an art teacher at Sunrise down as part of the DeSoto district. So I've been around education all my life. And I think our public education system is one of the greatest benefits that every child in this country has, the access to a public education. I've been to countries where education was curtailed. I've seen what it looks like when little girls aren't allowed to read books. And it's not a place you want to be. It's not a place I want my country to be. So firmly believe in public money for public schools, right? That's where it belongs. It absolutely, if our tax dollars are going to fund it, then they need to accept everybody. They should not have the right to turn anyone away. And for us, again, this was a destination district for my family. We came here because of the academics. We came here because of the school. We've seen what it's like when the district doesn't meet the needs of our children. And Lindbergh has turned that around, and I'm seeing all of my children flourish. So,
Thank you. Mr. Lineweber.
I'm a firm believer in public education, and I think that public money should go to the public schools. However, I would also say that if the public schools aren't getting their job done, then parents should have some voice in where their kids get educated. Now, I would agree with some comments down the line about accredited teachers. You certainly need to have accredited teachers. So whatever form that takes, I'm not for sure. But at the end of the day, when my son went here, we had 70 to 80% advanced math, proficient math students, 70 to 80%. Today we're at 48. So at some point, a parent should be able to say, where can I take my kids? Okay, that's all I'm getting at. And if vouchers or whatever it is you want to talk about in terms of money makes schools become competitive, then that's what we need to do. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Randleman.
Yes, so I think everyone here is running because we deeply care about public education, and we certainly want to support Lindbergh Schools. I'm a product of public education as well, although in Israel, not here, and I've seen what it's done for my kids. As for charter schools, I don't think that they have room here in our district. It's not right for our district, and we need to continue and support our school district so that it's a welcoming place to all and continues to be leading in its field. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Mr. Alonso.
Yes, I am a believer in public education. I work in public education. I send all three of my kids to Lindbergh Schools very proudly, and that is one of the reasons why my wife and I moved into the district, was because of the school system. As far as school choice is concerned, I don't believe that really gets to the heart of why a parent would want to send their kid to a different school. It does not fix the problem. It really only fixes it for a few percentage of students. It's like 3% of students would be able to transfer to a school. And so I am in the business of what's good for all children, not just the select few of children. And so those are the way I inform my decisions, is what is good for all students concerned, not just a small group of students. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start with you this time, Mr. Lawson. And let me just say that these are the specifics that several audience members wrote, the statistics in this question. Since NWEA shows that proficiency rates are 50% in Lindbergh Schools and about 20 points lower than Kirkwood Schools, what is the plan in helping individual students if their NWEA reading RIT score drops year after year? What about our literacy program? Has it failed? You can answer that in a minute.
Okay, yes, in 1 minute. So our literacy program has undergone a lot of focus and a lot of attention, and it is still in its pilot phase, as I understand it. We are very careful as a district to make data-based decisions. So I appreciate the time and effort that the district and the administration are putting into studying the tools that they're using and trying them and validating that they're delivering the results that they want. Change takes time. Change is difficult, and it can be challenging, and it requires you to have a steady hand and to lead your way through. And I think the administration has done an admirable job of this. There's still work to be done, and I think we still need to focus on making sure that we're meeting the needs of each student, and those needs are different. No one tool is going to work for 100% of the students, and so I think we need to find the right mix of tools that work for every student so that we can make each student their best self.
Thank you. Mr. Lineweber.
Good job, thank you. What a school could be, it's being reviewed by committee members and the board. And the real answer to the question is that we need to start being creative about how we teach our kids. I think if you did simple things like add a teacher between second and third grade and a teacher between fourth and fifth grade and call it a tweacher who would handle those kids who are struggling on the top end, combine them with the kids that are excelling on the bottom end so that you don't lose those bottom ends and top end students, okay? That's creative, that's innovative. All right, that's an idea. Now, as far as Northwest goes, the advantage is it allows you to check 3 times a year how a student's doing, but when a parent doesn't get the report that's taken in December 12th until conferences in March, we have to fix some things. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying we have to fix some things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, we need to move back to evidence-based curriculum selection. For example, in literacy, we have to go to phonics. In math, we removed math intervention in recent years. I think we have to bring it back. We can see that a lot of our students are struggling. I've spoken to many teachers in our district, and they're all reporting the same thing. They need more supporting staff to help either with interventions or with behavior situations in the class. And so I think we need to give that support to our teachers. We need to take a good, honest look at what we're teaching and make sure that it's evidence-based. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Alonso.
Yes, so just released this week the new APR score under MSIP 6. Lindbergh was rated at 87.6%, which is actually just a few points lower than Kirkwood. So I know the original question said that we were 20 points lower than Kirkwood in NWEA. And the thing that we need to remember is that that is an ongoing metric in which we are measuring students' growth throughout the entire year. And so I am very confident in the changes that we are putting forth with our literacy program. We have done many evidence-based instruction investigations, and we are ready to implement those in the next school year.
Okay, Ms. Watts.
Super excited for this question. First, I had somebody recommend a podcast called Sold a Story, which was fabulous about the history of reading. And so I listened to that on my plane ride. It's fantastic. You guys listen to it if you're interested. With the NWEA, and I think the question's asking, what are we going to do moving forward? What I really like about the NWEA is we're measuring those kids 3 times a year, not 1 time a year. It's not about taking a test. It's about measuring their growth. And so if you think about the fact that we measure it in the fall and then we measure it in the winter, and if one of the students isn't doing well, and let's say their times tables for 5s, then we can start to work with them for the rest of that time period till they get their 5s. It's called mastering it. So it's allowing us to measure what the students need and then begin to master what that is. Now, the other neat piece about this is not only are we going to know that in 1st grade, but when they move to 2nd grade, we're going to know what they did in 1st grade, and we can bridge that gap from 1st to 2nd. Time's up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Everybody's gotten a chance to answer that, and we're going to start with Mr. Lawson for the next question.
Okay.
And this is another question about people perceive
I
that.
did it first last time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Lawson. Go ahead. Oh, okay, okay. Mr. Weber, you are first this time. Thank you for keeping me straight. It's a necessary job. Okay, Mr. Weber, here's another question about what people perceive as dropping ratings in this district. For many years, Lindbergh had been a top school and was even #1 as recently as 2014, but has dropped to number 36. That's according to School Diggers, this question says. While MissouriSchoolRanking.org ranks Lindbergh at number 203 out of 516, and PublicSchoolReview.com has Lindbergh ranked at 110 out of 557. Why are we declining, and how can we bring our district back to the top?
I hope this one's a little easier for me. To start with, you have to be careful when you look these ratings up. If you go to places like greatschools.com, what you're going to find is greatschools.com has an affiliation with Zillow. If you go to whatever other organizations are out there, you're going to find they are either nonprofit or they are for-profit and have ties with people for profit. I always go by the state stats. The high schools rated significantly higher than the rest of our other schools. The reason why is because these kids were educated using teach to the test. Like it or not, that's why. That's why our high schoolers were the ones that won those awards that just came down off of the walls of our great elementary schools. They need to be put up on the walls of the high schools because those kids earned them. That's why we're dropping, and we are dropping. Wait till our 8th graders get to be seniors. I promise you, you're going to see more drops.
Thank you very much. Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, so obviously it's a difficult question to answer in 60 seconds, and there's more than one reason. But if I had to condense it, I would say there was a shift in strategy in general about where the school was going. We have our 5-year strategic plan where they surveyed the community and created committees, and that was the decision to move forward. So instead of having the academic focus and the rigor, we moved to teaching to the whole student. And this is part of that result, and I think we could do better in choosing the curriculum, and I won't repeat that again. But I guess that's the primary reason as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, so I do agree that Lindbergh did make a shift to move away from teaching to the test and teaching to the whole student, and actually agree with that decision. When you look at tests that really matter to students, tests like ACT test, that is where students are getting their scholarships, where they're getting entrance into colleges. When we look at the state testing, it's really more of an accountability-centered test rather than a student-centered test. And so that is the direction that we're headed with MSEP 6. And Lindbergh is a part of the Success Ready Network in Missouri. It's a network of districts across the state who are trying to redefine how we test students and how we measure success in our students. And so I'm very proud that Lindbergh is a part of that.
Ms. Watts.
Combination of things. There's so much here to unravel, but I think you do have to look at the reliability of the questionnaire. Like, what are those questions? I was just in a meeting today, and there was a shift in the questions, and so all school districts in the St. Louis area have fallen. But if you would take that same information and look at last year, the very same test, they would have been scoring 95 and above. So things are shifting, things are changing. Different rankings are changing, they're putting different denominators in there. So I think you have to really look at that. I'm, again, super excited for our journey forward and leaving that information behind and moving forward and just really focusing on the growth for our students and for all students. We have great graduation rates. We have excellent number of students that do something after college or after high school. And so I think that's fabulous. I think those are the two measures you want to look at.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at the ratings on these different organizations that have their own agenda, you're going to get a skewed story that supports their agenda. To Paul's point, when you look at the state and you see where the state, where we're measured by the same yardstick that every other school in the state is measured, you get a more clearer picture. But when you look across the board, Lindbergh is outperforming the state in all of these places. And the state has even acknowledged that there's work that needs to be done on their metric, which is why they have the system design ready system, right? That's why they're looking for how can we do this better, because even the state has acknowledged that they need a better measure. So I think holding us accountable to a measure that everyone has agreed is no longer effective seems backwards thinking. So I support the efforts that we're making to teach to the whole student, to consider that these children are more than just a single number. They're more than just a one test in one day. They are a whole student, and they deserve a whole education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Randleman, we're going to start with you first this time. And 2 or 3 people asked, what are your thoughts on the pilot implementation of standards-based grading at Lindbergh High School and the current translation scale from standard-based grading to letter grades? Is the translation scale fair? Does this implementation improve Lindbergh students' college acceptance eligibility and competition with students from other Missouri schools that do not use it?
Thank you. Well, before it was called standard-based grading, it was grading for equity. And the problem with equity is supposed to be without partiality. And this is exactly the opposite of that. We are grading based on all sorts of other factors, and I think that that's not a healthy thing. I think we need to grade everyone objectively, but at the same time, we want to support and give every student the opportunity that they can get to the maximum potential that they have. But I really disagree with this move that we're doing. I think it's wrong, and yeah, that's it.
Mr. Alonso.
So I actually do agree with standards-based grading, and I think there's a misconception that when you go to standards-based grading, you are doing away with like your reading, writing, and arithmetic and drill and kill. Part of the issue is that, so I teach high school math, and there is an app that students can get on their phone where they can take a picture of a math problem and it will solve it for them. And so technology exists out there. We have ChatGPT, which is an AI intelligence that will basically write a paper for a student too. So with standards-based grading, we are now able to assess our students on their knowledge and their skill, as opposed to, do you know how to drill and kill a problem? And I agree that students do need to know how to solve a math problem, but the understanding behind why they're solving the math problem, I feel, is more important. Thank you.
I saw the students smile when you talked about this app, so clearly they know about it.
Yeah.
Ms. Watts?
So standards-based grading for the high school in pilot means we're trying it, we're having discussions about it. I am not sure that I'm in favor of it because colleges haven't quite aligned. Colleges are still ABC with GPAs. So I need to do more learning, more studying, I need more information before I could make a decision on it. I'm not sure I'm quite there yet. I can tell you I saw success in elementary school because my daughter, the one who's in 7th grade, could care less when she was in elementary school. And when the report card came home and it said, you need to master your 5 times tables, she got that. It clicked for her because that's how her brain works. And then all of a sudden, she went down and checked every box that she needed to master, and we were getting straight A's. And that's working for her also in middle school. But I will be honest, I'm not sure about high school yet.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lawson.
Yeah, I think I'm in support of standards-based grading. I think it is a better option to meet the needs of every student. If you say the only way to prove that you know a thing is to answer one question just the same way that I would answer that question, that's just proving that you know how to answer a question like me. That doesn't necessarily prove that you know how to answer that question. So I think standards-based grading lets you consider that student, lets you consider their strengths in the way that they have learned a thing and give them the opportunity to show you that they have that competency, they have learned that skill, they have mastered that skill in a way that works for them. So I absolutely support it. To Christy's point, when you put it into the high school, it is important that it extend to the college. So I'm happy that we're piloting it there and we're looking at that. We need to make sure that that doesn't delay our students in their futures when they go into the college space. But I don't think we throw it out just because it's different and scary. I think we absolutely need to look at it and we need to make a data-based decision. Thank you.
Mr. Lineweber, how about you?
Can you see the steam coming out of my head yet? My daughter, I don't like to use her by name, went into the 1st grade at the 93rd percentile. She knew basically all of she was 1st grade competent going into 1st grade. She actually grew. According to the NWEA scores and the likes, she grew 10%. Growth measurements and not giving percentiles helps kids who want hope. That does help kids that want hope, but it doesn't help the kids that need challenge, okay? That's the only issue that I have with standard-based grading. If you don't say, hey, Joey, you're in the bottom percentile, you don't have to hurt their feelings, right? You can say, hey, you need to work on this, or you are acceptable. That's my only concern with standard-based grading. My daughter who went in at the 93rd percentile on December 12th, she was scored in the NWA system in the middle. She scored at the 85th percentile. And she grew. How do you score in the 85th after the...
Time is up. Mr. Alonso, we're going to start with you this time. And instead of holding you all accountable, we're going to talk about holding the special school district accountable. So there were a number of questions about this. How can we keep the special school district accountable for giving our students the services they need? What do we do to make sure that they give students who are a danger to themselves and to others what they need? One question talked about administrative hearing commissions, which deals with disputes. So what about the special school district?
Okay, thank you. Yes, so working in a school, I work very closely with SSD employees, and I will tell you they have one of the hardest jobs in a district. The paperwork that they do, the amount of work that they do for students is unbelievable, and the number of kids that they have on their workload is unbelievable as well. I do feel like we do a pretty good job of holding our SSD teachers accountable for their job. And unfortunately, there are times where things fall through the cracks. And I think the best thing for us to do is to support those teachers in any way that we can, and make sure that they have the tools necessary to do their job effectively. And instead of going after them for not doing their job, what would it look like for us to work with them as a partner instead of a gotcha
Thank you.
mentality?
Thank you. Ms. Watts?
So I've saw a couple of strides with SSD, and for the first time ever this year at one of our board meetings, their director presented to us and talked to us about their programs and things that they're doing and things they're changing and how what their focus is. And so being the first time, I felt like that was a step in the right direction. I know that some of our administrators are partnering more closely with SSD administrators to give them feedback and help them along and with critiques. And so I like those things that I'm seeing. I would like us to continue to partnership with SSD, maybe a little heavier, so that they understand what's happening in our schools, and so we can fix some of these things. I learned that SSD teachers are amazing. They really are. I've met several of them. But I've learned that if a student has some behavior issues, then they're put in a different category, and so they can't learn. And so that really bothers me. So as a board member, I'm speaking out for that to change.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson?
So we use special school district services. I have IEPs for my children, and we've had an amazing experience here. I also came from a district. I mentioned a couple times that Lindbergh was a destination district for us. Those same children were underserved dramatically. It is the single reason that we moved from where we were to where we are. We bought a house because they weren't getting the services they needed. So I will say this for the special school districts here, they're going far and above beyond where I came from. Does that mean they're perfect? No, absolutely not. I think we do need to partner with them. That's a great word that both of these guys just used. We need to partner with them. We need to have that guiding light of what is best for the student. That looks different for each child. So finding what tools are available, what resources are available, what interventions are available, and applying those when they need to be applied correctly is the only way that we're going to move forward and give everybody the opportunity to succeed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lineweber?
I have to be honest, this is a new area for me. I'm doing my best to learn about this. I'm engaging with people online, and I'm engaging with parents who have kids in these programs. So this is new to me. I will tell you this. The people that I have met, probably 3 parents so far, with exception to Andrew, along with him, they are very happy. People I've engaged with online who have sent me mails are not necessarily so. I don't know exactly why that is, and again, this is a new area to me. I come from an area on the upper realm of the spectrum when it comes to students, and so I have to learn. That's part of this process. I've been here for 12 years, so I got another 10 to go. So hopefully I can learn a lot before these kids are all gone. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Randleman?
Yeah, so first of all, in my opinion, the SSD teachers are absolutely heroes. And I've had the privilege of speaking to some of them and hear about their pain points. I think there's been a growth of IEPs and students who need support from SSD. And I don't think we've been growing the amount of teachers available to support those needs. And so they're struggling, they really are. I know that the administration has tried to improve coordination with the SSD district by getting a coordinator here and that sits in this building to try to help facilitate communications and faster response. But bottom line is we need more staff there to support our students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with you this time, Ms. Watts. And let's talk about a different group of students. Several people asked about the gifted program. Are we meeting the needs of our gifted students? Why or why not? What else should we do?
So I had two of my students who were gifted, and I feel like they had an exceptional education. They were both just talking over the weekend about space camp and how awesome it was, and the critical thinking that they learned, and how that critical thinking really is valuable now that one's in college and one's a junior in high school. I think our PEGs and gifted teachers are amazing. I love their innovation. They're having we've got a whole building now so that the PEGs can move there. It's called the Idea Center, which can't wait to get in there and see it. And I envision robots, and I envision little things running around on the floor, and super excited for that. So I'm a fan. So love it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that we also consume the gifted education side. My daughter Charlotte is actually going to be the LEAP Student of the Year, recognized at tomorrow's board meeting. I'm super excited for her. She has had an amazing time at LEAP. She is an exceptional student, and exceptional students have exceptional needs sometimes. And it's nice that the district has our LEAP teachers, and they also have the PEGS Center that understand that special needs space, because it's different than you might think. Just because somebody is academically gifted doesn't mean that they don't need attention, that they don't need engagement or interaction. Sometimes they need it more. And these teachers do an amazing job of meeting the children where they are, playing to their strengths, and giving them the tools that they need to be their best self. And I'm absolutely astounded with the quality of our gifted education program at Lindbergh. Thank you.
Mr. Lineweber.
So as far as the gifted program goes, my daughter is also in the gifted program, and that kind of goes to what I was trying to describe earlier. Hard to do it in a minute. She came in to the first grade at the 93rd percentile, dropped to the 85th percentile. The gifted program has nothing to do with that, but my point is that we need to, our gifted program is great, okay, by the way, but we need to be catching, I think our LEAP kids are at risk. They're at risk because they're in the top 5th percentile because they are once gifted, either on the English side or on the critical thinking side. What happens is when they're back in the normal classroom, they excel. And what happens is the curriculum, as all of the presentations that have been given to all the parents say, the course goes at the same speed. We'll give them a ladder up. There wasn't a ladder up for that student. So we have work that we need to do, and I think that those LEAP kids are at risk, and we should be doing a study to see whether or not the top 5 percentile are actually dropping the first half of the year or for the first trimester. Thank you.
Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, so I very much support the program, and I want to make sure we continue to support that. My own children benefited from that. My daughter went to space camp. She still remembers that very fondly. So really, I'm in agreement with what most have said here, and want to continue and see the children have the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about our gifted program. Space camp is always something that kids talk about, and I want to go to space camp, and so I'm jealous that I did not have a program like that when I was in school. And so it's things like that that are innovative teaching experiences for our children that our gifted program brings. And I think Andy said it well, that meeting our kids where they are is what our gifted program does. And I just absolutely love that about the program.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to start with Mr. Lawson this time in this question, and we're going to switch gears. And let me just say that you all turned in over 100 questions online. And then I've gotten about 40 here tonight. And I will tell you that more than half of these questions, almost 2/3 of these questions, are about equity. And so what I've tried to do is to group some of those questions, and we're going to spend some time on this because clearly it's something that people are concerned about. First question is this: should Lindbergh continue investing in equity programs? And some people said you were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. Some people were pointing out particular programs, equity programs, et cetera, for teachers, for staff, for different groups of students. Some questions dealt with unrepresented groups that are not featured prominently enough in the curriculum. So for example, equity for women, equity for persons of color, equity for LGBTQ+ persons. All of these things we're talking about, should we continue to invest as much as we are in these kinds of programs? Why or why not? We get to start with you.
Okay, so short answer, yes. I think we absolutely should continue to invest in equity programs. Anytime you talk about equity, it's important to understand the difference between equity and equality. It doesn't look the same for every student. I've said that several times tonight. Not every student has the same needs. So equity is designed to meet the students where they are and bring them all to that level where they can all be successful. It's kind of my resounding call, if you will. So I think we absolutely need to continue to invest in those programs. On top of that, you called it out and part of the question, it's not just the students. We have an entire staff, and those staff are made up of people, and those people deserve to be in a place that is safe, where they belong, where they are heard and represented and feel seen. And that's what equity is about, is giving everybody an opportunity to belong and to be somewhere where they're heard, where they know that they can just exist without it being a problem. So that's my answer.
Okay, Mr. Lineweber.
This depends on how you define equity. If equity means that the kids at Crestwood get the same number of teachers as the kids at Concord, that's equity, all right? That's equity to me. Now, having said that, as far as meeting kids where they are, equity means taking all kids where they can be, not meeting them where they are. Equity doesn't just cross racial lines, it doesn't just cross sexual lines, it crosses all lines. We need to be fair to everybody. We need to make sure that everybody is comfortable at school. If that's where we're spending some money, that's fine. But if it's going to cost us our grades, there's nothing equitable about 48% math proficiency. That's not equitable there's nothing equitable about pooling middle school programs, such as the advanced AP, whatever, their challenge classes. What's equitable about pooling challenge classes? Where's that poor kid gonna go? Sylvan? Probably not.
Mr. Randleman.
So I very much believe in the melting pot philosophy. I think the students represent themselves. They don't need to have others that look like them. They represent themselves. And as long as the school district is accepting and accommodating and giving the same education opportunity to each and every one, which I expect nothing less, then we're giving equality. That is the American way. That is exactly what us as immigrants here have received. And that's what every single student deserves to get. And it doesn't matter what their background is. We accept them, we love them, and we want them to have that opportunity. And again, like I said before, equity is something dispensed. We dispense justice and equity, but that means no partiality. Thank you.
Mr. Alonso.
So I think it is worth repeating again. Andy said this earlier, that equity does not mean everything is equal. It does not mean that you give every student the same whatever it is. It means that you are creating an environment where every student can succeed based on their own individual needs. And so I also believe that we do need to be spending money in this area. And I feel like we do a service to our teachers to teach our teachers about things like implicit biases. So this is an area that I have worked on as an educator just knowing my own biases as a person who doesn't necessarily look like all of my students. And so having that ability to notice and to realize that has made me a better educator. And I feel like we are doing our teachers and our students a service through this work.
Ms. Watts?
So I'm a student here. I'm gonna admit it. I just had a conversation earlier around this. And I am learning, and I think that's okay, because I think everyone is learning about this equality piece. We have a DE&I administrator, and I love what she said. Equality is everybody having a pair of shoes, but equity is everybody having shoes that fit them. And as I listened to that tape in my head, ooh, I'm gonna cry. Anyway, as I listened to that tape in my head, it's so true. And I'm so proud of our students because they have an organization called CAP. And this was founded a year ago. And so I attended the equity night. And this was about a student who is homeless and is moved at nighttime at 3 a.m., but someone expects her to focus. And so we need to meet her where she is and understand that maybe she wasn't in her bed all night and she's going to take a test today, but she just wants to put her head down for a minute. And sorry, I get emotional. It's my passion. And it's also about a student who has ADHD and can't sit in their chair to listen to a lecture. They just want to, jump around or something. But that's where I'm headed. I'm a student and I'm learning. So yes, want to spend money there.
We are going to start with you this time, Mr. Lineweber. We're going to keep asking some difficult questions here for a while. How do you define parental rights? For example, and there were a number of examples where people said, is this the parent's right? Is this the parent's right? So I'm going to repeat a couple of those so you sort of know what people are worried about. For example, if there are students who identify as something other than their biological gender or even use a different name, should their parents be informed? Why or why not? Other people talked about should they be told if their student wants to use a bathroom which is not the designated bathroom for their gender, their biological gender. So these were the kinds of questions that people were asking. Another final question was about sex education. And should we start, where should we start? And should parents have a right to determine that for their child? So I just wanted to give you a sense of the kinds of questions people had about it.
Do this as quick as I can here. Gender euphoria, it exists. What the causes may be, I'm not here to say. Having said that, those kids need a safe place. It's only fair. Having said that, parents should absolutely be informed. Our teachers aren't doctors. So that's where I would go with that. As far as the designated bathrooms, we've already accomplished that because what we have is a boys and a girls, but we have stalls in every bathroom. So, at some point, we spend a lot of time talking about activist type issues in our schools, and what we really should be focusing on primarily is our academics, okay? I'm not saying these things aren't important. I'm just saying that we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about this. What we should be talking about is ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and why our kids aren't getting any schooling, okay? And that's where I go with that. As far as sports go, the idea of transgender boys and girls sports, unacceptable.
Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, so certainly gender dysphoria is a real thing, and I believe that a lot of those students are really dealing with identity issues in their life, and my heart goes out to them. I think also parental rights has almost become a little bit of a dog whistle, so I want to be very clear what that means. I think every parent would agree that they are the primary care and decision maker regarding the health and decisions of their students. I don't think it's right for, on a topic like this, which is so crucial to how we raise children, to have conversations with staff without the knowledge. Now, I think it's possible for a counselor to reach out to the parent and say, your child's struggling with something, is it okay for them to talk to me? And they'll want to keep it in confidence. If the parent agrees, that's fine. But the parents have to be involved, and we have to be sensitive about that. There are students who have been hurt because the students have been hurt because the parents didn't know, and it brought situations where those students needed therapy after because of that. So that's my stand on that. Thank you.
Mr. Alonso.
So being a public school teacher, I am a state mandated reporter, and this is not one of those situations to have to report if a student says that they prefer to be referred to by a different gender or by a different name. Now, with that being said, as that safe person for that student, they felt comfortable enough to tell me these things. I would also advise that student that they need to be having conversations with other people in their life that love them and care for them. Now, whether that's the parent or not, I don't know. I don't have the luxury of knowing when my students go home who that safe person is for them. I hope that it is their parents. In my family, it is my wife and I for our children, but not everybody has that same luxury. And so I would encourage students to seek out the people who love and support them and get advice from them. As far as sex ed, we allow parents to opt children out of sex ed in any topic. Parents know ahead of time, and so our parents do know.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Ms. Watts.
So Matt's correct, the sex education part, there's an opt-out for that. Teachers send information and tell you exactly what's going to be taught. You don't want your kid to learn it, then they're not going to be in the classroom and they're not going to learn it. So we've addressed that as a district. I'm going to answer the rest of the question the same way I did in a different forum. And I think that students probably go to teachers because they find them a safe person to talk to. They see them in the classroom every day. There's some kind of a connection there. Our teachers are not certified, and I think our teachers know that. And I think our teachers pass them on then to counselors if they feel like they need to. So as for parental rights, yeah, absolutely. A parent should know if the child wants to be called by a different pronoun, if they're, whatever piece you want to talk about, different sexual orientation. Yes, the parent should know. I think there's a bit of a process to go through, though. They're probably, as Matt said, going to talk about a safe person first. So, thank you.
Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, so I'm more on the side of the student, right? If the student is dealing with something and they trust their teacher, they trust their staff enough to come in and have that conversation with them, I'm not going to come in and mandate that teacher then betray that trust if that's the concern. We don't know what is happening there. And I think it's important that we provide that space to any child, right? That's why we trust teachers to be mandatory reporters when it comes to domestic violence, because they're going to see it and they're going to go do that right action. And I think the same thing goes here. You need to talk with the child, give them that opportunity to talk, and then if they're comfortable with it, absolutely. I would not have any teacher go through the whole process of trying to help a child transition, but have the conversation with them. And if they're comfortable, direct them to the resources that they have. I don't want it to turn into, you can't have this conversation with me because I have to run back and tell your parents whether you want me to or not. And so that's my stance.
Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Randleman this time. And I want to privilege our students' question as part of this question, one of theirs. It deals with curriculum decisions. How much control do you think parents should have over curriculum, over removing books from the library? And the students want to know what your personal position is on teaching what they call holistic history, particularly the 1619 project.
All right. Well, first of all, In my opinion, history has to be taught objectively in the context of its time. If history isn't taught by that fashion and we apply our own current lenses, it gives us a skewed understanding of what happened at that time. Now, we look at things, we understand the situation, we as free critical thinkers, we can determine if that was right or wrong and make our judgment, but it has to be objective. It has to be by the time, the context of its time. I don't remember what other part of the question, though, that was asked.
1619 project.
Right,
What's
so
your
that I
position?
kind of covered in the context of history. I don't believe that book is really historical. It's through a viewpoint, it's through a lens, and so you have to take it with a grain of salt in that fashion.
Mr. Alonso.
So I'm proud to say that when we hired Dr. Lake, one of his first priorities was to create board advisory committees. And one of those committees is a teaching and learning committee. And that committee is directly involved in making curriculum decisions. And there are many stakeholders on that committee. They include students, parents, teachers, board members, people in the district office. And so all the right people are at the table. They all have a seat at the table when making decisions on curriculum. And I feel like our curriculum and instruction team does a wonderful job making those decisions. In terms of a holistic history approach, I do feel like there are things that are missed that we teach in our history classes, and one of the things that I would like to see is making sure that we're offering opportunities for students to learn maybe different viewpoints from history. Learning history, at my school we have a history class through movies, and so I think we need more diversity in that aspect.
Ms. Watts.
So again, I'm going to echo what Matt said about, we have the board advisory groups, we have teachers involved, we have administrators involved, we have professionals involved in researching this curriculum. We pilot a lot of curriculum. There's another point I had there. But also parents can opt out. So again, this information is on, the teachers filter that through to parents. So like when we're doing AP social studies, we know what's gonna be in there. And so if I don't want my child into AP social studies, then I can opt out of that. They're not learning the same as what the other students do, and AP is actually a college course. But I do feel like we do a good job with the curriculum. Can we add more in? We can. We could probably go both-sided. And there was another part to that. Tell me that.
1619 project.
1619 project. Okay. I'm going to be vulnerable. I don't know what that is. So there you go. I have no answer.
Mr. Lawson.
Okay, so I think from a holistic education, I think that's the only way to go. If I work in the technology field, we are a rapidly shrinking community, right? It's come to a point where I say shrinking, but really it's expanding in that we're part of a global community. It's no longer you grow up and live with the people from your town and that's all you know. There's a reason they ask, what high school did you graduate from in St. Louis, right? Because it tells you kind of where people came from and who they know. But that's becoming less and less important as you look at the fact that we're part of a global scale that's interconnected. We have access to information from everywhere, and if we don't teach the whole history, if we don't teach all of the things that happened, we're sending our kids out there half prepared for what the rest of the world knows. The rest of the world watches and sees what we do. And if we don't teach them what happened, they're doomed to repeat it. So the best thing that we can do is give them all of the information, flaws and all, and say, look, this is what was done then. We can't go back and change it, but we can prevent it from happening again.
Finally, Mr. Lineweber.
As far as the 1619 project, I'm kind of with, I'm sorry, Christy, sorry, I apologize. The history is about truth, okay? And it doesn't matter whose truth it is. It's about all of the truth. So to the victor goes the spoils. That's the way history has been. You write, whoever wins the war gets to write the story, right? So what I would tell you is we need to have all of the truth out there, and we should never demonize our country, and we should never let our children feel like they come from somewhere that they should be ashamed of, okay? So when it comes to history, that's my viewpoint. They need to be proud of where they come from, but they need to understand that we make mistakes. Having said that, I'll give you an example. Don't just teach all of the bad things we did. Teach our kids that in 1808 and 1809, the British and the American colonies America were the first ones to outlaw the slave trade and do away with it before the Civil War, okay? And before the western continents of Africa. Teach that in history class.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Alonso, you're going to go first this time. You can all take a deep breath here. Teacher burnout is a problem. How can we support our teachers, hire and retain excellent ones? What is it that challenges this? Is it classroom size? Is it salaries? Is it curricular challenges, et cetera, et cetera? And, you know, what part does the union play in this?
Okay, so when I was first elected to the board in 2017, teachers were working to contract, and what that basically means is we have a contracted time to start and contracted time to end, and teachers would not work outside of that time period. So they would not answer emails at the end of the day. They would not come in early to help students. And as a teacher, I can tell you that that just kills me to know that a teacher would have to go through that because of concerns over their employment. And what we have done in the past 6 years is we have boost teacher morale incredibly. I would encourage you to talk to any teacher in the district and ask them how satisfied they are teaching in Lindbergh. We were losing teachers right and left to other districts, Clayton, Lindbergh, Parkway. But now that's not the case. We are keeping teachers. We have increased our teacher pay to move us up in the area. We are not top in the area. We will not be top. We are not a Clayton school district, but we have made great improvements in this area.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Watts.
Excited about this question as well. As I said in my opening, in 2017, there's a little bit of a discrepancy, also as Matt shared. One thing we started out with right away was taking a look at the teacher scale and see where everybody was. We actually had some teachers in one step that would get a 1% raise, and teachers right next to them that would get a 10% raise. So got in there, figured that all out, and so we have a focus on teacher pay. And I know a lot of it's talked about across Missouri as well. We've moved up in the ranks, and we continue to talk about that. Also, wellness was a big thing for me, and a couple of years ago, I started talking about we need to do something for the teachers around wellness. You know, they're stressed. We just got finished with COVID, or we're in the middle of COVID, and so we now have wellness coordinators in each building to help with yoga. Some of the teachers get up and do yoga because there's a yoga instructor now. I know there's some meal planning going on. So wellness was really important to me. I feel like it's a combination of things, and actually voted number 2 is the best place to work in St. Louis this year.
Mr. Lawson.
It's simple. Without teachers, there is no education. You can't have a school without teachers in the room, without teachers leading our students. So we as a district have to make sure that we're supporting our teachers and we're meeting their needs. It shouldn't be a struggle for someone to get a living wage. It shouldn't be a fight. It shouldn't be an argument. It shouldn't be a point of contention. It's important that we invest in our educators, and we have. The district has done a great job in talking to, as I mentioned, I've been endorsed by the teachers union, and the resounding answer I got when I asked, what are the teachers saying is they're content. They're comfortable with where they are, right? And that goes a long way to saying the district is on the right path there. We can still do better. We should always do better, and we need to make sure we keep an eye on it to make sure that doesn't change and we don't slip out of where we need to be. But I think it's important that we remember that teachers are people, and we need to invest and give them the resources they need to be successful.
Mr. Lineweber.
Oh, sorry. The idea that the 2016 drop in academics was a result of teaching to contract is maybe justifiable as to why it happened, but that was 2016, and we haven't recovered. So unless they're still teaching to contract, that can't be the reason, okay? The reason is we dropped rigor, and we dropped the idea of academic excellence through testing. That's what happened. As far as our teachers go, I have no idea whether or not they're super happy with what they have or whether they're not happy with what they have, but I want their student-teacher ratio to drop. We started the year at 19-1. The administration told me there was no plans to change that. Fortunately, after December, it dropped to 17, so I'm appreciative of that. But most of the adjacent districts are 15, 14, and 16. I think that's significant.
Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, so first of all, credit where credit is due. I think that the district has improved salaries and benefits for the teachers, and I am very grateful for that. When I've spoken to teachers, the primary feedback I get from them is a little bit of a frustration when it comes to communication. When they're the boots on the ground, they're seeing situations and they want to relay those communications to the administration. A lot of times there's a difficulty getting that through, or there's difficulty getting a response or action. So how to improve things for teachers? I think we need to make sure that senior teachers have a stake in some of the decision making, or at least much more of an influence, and that we make sure we have a process so that teachers that are voicing concern know there's a timeline until there's a response that happens from the administration back down. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one last question, and by the way, we've gotten through 12 questions. We will, and I think that's pretty good, actually. And I could not ask many of your questions, but I tried to pick the ones that a lot of people were concerned with. But before I ask the last question, which is about money, okay, I want to tell you some questions that I think belong being addressed in your final statements. So let me mention some of those to you. And let's start with, I've got a number of questions, both online and now several from the audience tonight. And this one is directed first to you, Mr. Randleman, but I want everybody to answer it, and you can just do a yes or no. They want to know, do all of your children go to Lindbergh? And if you haven't answered that question directly, which some of you did in your opening statements, please do that. Other people want to know, look, we are all talking about diversity and inclusion. How come we have some people have said an all-white, maybe union endorsed, perhaps liberal school board? I'm trying to tell you what has been the language that people have used. So I think a good question for you to address, and I'm not sure that's right. What do you think about that? And what unique voice would you bring to the school board that you think needs to be there? Okay? So I'm trying to put together some questions there. Other things that they want to know. What is your number one personal characteristic that you think will make you very effective as part of this team as you look to new challenges? And other people are saying, you know, how are you going to really communicate with parents? How are you going to communicate with the teachers and the staff? Do you have one or two unique, specific, don't just say more communication is better, okay? A specific suggestion for how to do that. And finally, why do you want this job? Why do you want to stand up for this district? So is that fair enough? I really think those belong in the final kinds of statements, so I thought that I would mention them, and those all came from the audience. So here's the money question. A number of people wanted to go back to Prop R from 2019, and they're saying, okay, we upgraded facilities in the district. Do we need to keep spending more money on capital projects, which you use bonds for, if our enrollment isn't increasing? They also want to know, is the new high school on budget? How do you watch these money kinds of questions? We keep spending. Are we going to have to keep spending in the future? What is your position on that? So it looks to me as if Ms. Watts, you're first. Don't you love it? Money, 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 money.
Love it. It's my favorite question, almost. Okay, so do we need to continue to spend on capital projects? Yes, we do, because we have a middle school without air conditioning and without heating. So this middle school is costing us a lot of energy efficiencies. Just heard today, we have some schools that still have boilers in them. So I don't know if anybody have heard of boilers. I wondered if they threw chunks of wood in there or how we're heating that. So do we need to continue on capital improvements? We do. We also have some elementaries that share cafeterias and gymnasiums. So we got to coordinate the schedule so that kiddos can go to lunch, students, can go to lunch, and then some can go to gym. And wouldn't it be fantastic if students could be in the gym and students could be at lunch? So do we? Yes. And excited for that 5-year plan because we're getting ready to redo that. It's about ending, and so we're excited to redo the 5-year plan.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson.
Everything Christy just said, we absolutely need to continue to invest. We still have work to do on our facilities. Facilities are that space, and we need it in order to keep educating our students. The growth or decline in enrollment is an important metric to look at, but not when deciding on if you should invest for the future, because what happens this year may be very different from what happens next year. And so we need to make sure that we have a plan for longevity of the district facilities, and that's done through those capital projects. We do need to work to make sure that we keep them on budget, but we also need to make sure that we deliver the things that were supposed to be delivered under that capital project to make sure that we're giving the students what they need in order to be successful. So that's my answer.
Mr. Lineweber.
Thanks, Christy. She answered my question. Yes. Having said that, I would say that my son, the 2013 graduate, went to Truman Elementary. So that gives you an idea about how old these buildings are. Okay, so, and if you can justify some of that with things like cost savings on upgrades, that's a good thing. And I think she kind of, touched base on that. You also asked about what I would bring. What I would bring is a K through 12 experience about how things work when you're raising your kids through a school system, and the passion. I'm going to be honest, we have an average school district, I think at this point in time, a little bit above average, but when it comes to comparing ourselves to locally, we're a little bit below. I would actually have moved if it wasn't for the fact that my daughter lost her brother the year before she started kindergarten. And I want her to be able to walk the high schools and walk the schools, buildings, and touch the walls. She doesn't have that with a photo. That's why I'm running, and that's why I have that passion. Thank you.
Mr. Randleman.
Yeah, so I studied the finances in Lindbergh Schools. The report, it's like this thick and a lot of numbers, and I find a lot of interest in that. So first of all, I believe the district has been good stewards and faithful to the taxpayers. I think they've done a good job. I also know that some of our buildings are starting to reach end of life, and we have to weigh the cost of continuing to maintain them and do the fiscal responsible calculation of maybe it's time to upgrade certain things. And so as long as we have that sensitive mindset and we're looking at the long term and cost, I think the district will continue making the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, I absolutely do believe that we need to keep spending money on capital improvements. So just like your house, when you make capital improvements to your home, it increases its value. And so by making improvements to our schools, we're just increasing that value of our school as well. And we're being good stewards of our property in that way. Christy had also mentioned the cafegimatorium, as it's so affectionately called, in a lot of the elementary schools. And part of adding a gymnasium to the elementary schools that do not have one, you are also adding a storm shelter, which touches on safety for our children. And we have a state-of-the-art storm shelter at Dressel, at the high school, at a few of our other schools. And why wouldn't we want that for all of our children in the district?
Thank you. We ready for final statements now? 2 minutes apiece. Start with Mr. Randleman.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I know there were some questions addressed specifically to me. I'll do my best to address it on my website on the Q&A because it's way too long to explain that in 2 minutes. So for the closing right now, really what it comes down to is a decision on 2 paths. The first path is where we've gone in the last 5-6 years and what we've seen, or trying to go back to the Lindbergh experience that we know, which is more academic focused. And that's the decision that the community members and everyone present need to decide. And I would say no matter what we heard tonight as far as stats or things like that, even when we compare to our neighboring school districts, there's something to be improved upon. And finally, this coming election, April 4th, there are 3 seats open, but you don't have to select 3 seats, even though the ballot says choose 3. You can bullet vote. You can choose only the candidates that you want. And so my request is vote for me, or vote for me and any other candidate that you agree with that has that focus. That'll increase our chance. And again, last year it was about 5 points off from winning. And I really want to represent you all, and I mean everyone. And so I hope you'll give me that chance. Thank you.
Mr. Lineweber.
I want to bring back academic excellence. I think that David said a lot about this. I think that at the end of the day, we have a good school. I think that our administration and our teachers, and I think all of the incumbents and everybody up here love our kids. Okay. Having said that, you have a choice. You can go back to, you have 3, I see it as 3 options. You can go back to teaching to the test and high academic scores. You can go with where we're at and lower academic scores, and we trail Parkway, Kirkwood, Webster Groves, and I believe, don't cite me on this one, Rockwood may have just pulled ahead of us, but I know that the other 3 for sure are superior to us. So when we compare ourselves, you need to do it to your local region. Having said that, I love these kids. I always have as a coach, and that's why I'm up here. Like I said, it would have been easier for me to buy a piece of property in Kirkwood, right? I'm here because I have passion for this district, and until I have to move, I'm not going to. Having said that, I request you to consider me to lead, and I really don't know what else to tell you. Your third choice is balance between those 2 things. Okay, we don't have to go back to teaching to the test. We don't have to go with not teaching to the test. We can go with things like, why don't you teach to the test in 3rd grade with that teacher and teach to that test in the 5th grade with that teacher so that you can improve those scores for the 5th grade and the 3rd grade where they're really emphasizing those tests. So if the kids are slowing down in 1st grade, now they can catch up a little bit when they take those tests and make us competitive with our neighbors. That's all I ask. I want the same number of teachers in the classroom as our neighbors. I want the same resources as our neighbors. That's equity with our neighbors, okay? So that's what I want, and that's all I'm asking for. And I commend the district for being better than the national average, but I want us to be better than the regional average. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, so 2 minutes for a closing statement. I'll close with, I moved to this district because of this district, because of what it can give my children. It's why I'm here. And I have been astounded by the professionalism and the dedication and the above and beyond service that my children have received in this district. So why do I want to run? Because I love what Lindbergh is doing for my kids, and I want to make sure that other parents feel that same way. I want to make sure that If someone has a need, this district is equipped to meet it. If one of our students is struggling somewhere, this district is there to catch them. I focus on transformational leadership in my professional world. I focus on continuous improvement, and better is better, right? It doesn't have to be straight to perfection. We can make incremental improvements. Change takes time. Change can be scary, but we need to change because the world is changing so fast. And if education doesn't keep up, it's our students that get left behind. And they're going to be out in a public space that they're not prepared for because we failed to do our job. We have to make sure that we are keeping pace with what is happening outside of our little world, outside of our little echo chambers. We have to prepare our students for what they're going to encounter when they walk across that stage and get handed a diploma, and then we say, good luck, right? So that's our job. What does that take? It takes a lot, right? And I have 30 seconds and not nearly enough time to talk about it. But that's why I'm running, that's why I'm here. And I'm proud to say that all of my children do attend Lindbergh, and my children will continue to attend Lindbergh, because it's why we're here. So April 4th, number 3 on the ballot, Andrew Lawson. Thank you.
Ms. Watts?
So Kathleen, I wrote right down your bullet pointed list. I'm sorry, I don't have a, so you guys are gonna get my bullet points here. One thing that I do want to mention is I am also supported and endorsed by the teachers. I'm very proud of that. And as I said in my opening statements, I am a supporter of public schools, a supporter of teachers, and a supporter of students. And so into my, what is my unique voice? I shared with you, I have students who are gifted. I also have a student under SST. And you can see my passion coming again. But so I go all ranges here. I go all ranges and in between. I think that my background in human resources is beneficial because I am working with people in careers. I'm working with people in IT. I'm getting ready to do a resume for somebody who's going to go into AI. And so having that knowledge and bringing it here to the district and to our administrators and sharing that, I think is important. I also am the one on the board who likes the political piece. And so I'm the delegate for MSBA, the Missouri School Board Association. Go to Jeff City once a year, kind of dig that sort of thing. And so that makes me a little bit unique as well. My strengths are, and if anybody's familiar with Strength Finders, it's an assessment tool that you use in the corporate world, and my strengths are strategic, futuristic, and positivity. So I'm always going to be the cheerleader for that district, for our students, and for our teachers. As for communication, I'm very visible. You're going to find me every Friday night at football games. You're going to find me at basketball games. You're going to find me at championship games. You're going to see me everywhere. I will have my Lindbergh logo wear on. My closet, in fact, is stacked by Lindbergh logo wear, dance team logo wear, and dance studio logo wear, and then soccer. So that's about me. And why do I want this job? As I stated earlier, I'm invested, I'm a community member, my kids go here, I'm engaged, I'm visible, like to learn, and as I said before, I'm not sure what 1619 is. So one quality you want about a school board member is to go home and study, and I have to sharpen this up. But that's the end. Vote for me on April 4th, number 2 on the ballot.
Finally, Mr. Alonso.
Yeah, so I would like to point out, I know there was one question that kind of stuck out to me that you had said about the school board being all liberal, and I would encourage you to have a conversation with the members of your school board. I think you would be surprised at the political leanings of everyone on the board. But one thing that I can say is that none of us ever put our political views above the needs of our students. We are always doing what's best for students. We are always trying to make that decision that is going to benefit our students and benefit our families in the district. And that means putting our political views aside. We work very well as a board currently, and I am excited to see what happens after the election. And I hope that you would consider voting for me. One personal characteristic about myself, I'm a lifelong learner, and so I am constantly learning new things, being an educator. One of my philosophies in the classroom is that I am the lead learner for my students. I am learning right alongside them. And so an opportunity that I have serving on the board gives me a unique perspective, one, from a teacher point of view, and then two, from a student point of view, because I see so many students every single day. I believe in what we are doing in this district. This is why we send all three of our kids to Lindbergh Schools. This is why we are so proud to live in the district. I believe in everything that we are doing. I believe in our superintendent and our cabinet. And I hope that you would consider voting for me on April 4th. I am the first on the ballot. And should you need more information, feel free to visit my website. It's alonzo4lindbergh.com, and reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think we ought to give all of our candidates a round of applause. Thank them for participating. Thanks to all of you, because these were exclusively your questions, and I have a pile up here if anybody wants to look at them. And thank you to the Lindbergh District, who is very welcoming and helpful. And finally, if the League volunteers would raise your hands, that would be great, just so you know that here's folks who care about education a lot too, or else we wouldn't do this. Now, I challenge you, because last year when we did this, 2 people joined the League immediately after coming to it. So if you think that this is helpful to you, please think about joining the League. And the League of Women Voters is not for women only. We have over 100 male members, so you would be in very good company. We hope you appreciate the free services we provide to educate voters. It's not just enough to vote, although we're not voting enough. The problem with voting is that we don't vote. So I challenge each of you to get 5 people who weren't going to vote in the municipal elections to please do so. Nothing matters more in your lives than what happens in your own backyard. Okay? So we need to vote in those elections. Remember that you are lucky in the county. I live in the city and I'm not that lucky. You can vote at any polling place you want. I can't yet, okay? So you can go any place if you're on your way home, if you're on the way to a doctor's appointment, the grocery store, go to any polling place, and all of them are listed on your Board of Elections website. If you want to look at the polling places, look at that website, or you can call them, or you can call the League of Women Voters, and we'd be happy to help you find one that would work perfectly for you. Please inform yourself about these candidates and also all the other things that are on your ballot. 2 things. If you get on vote411.org, and I would say by Friday, that will be totally live, and you just put in your address, it pulls up just your ballot. The League does not endorse candidates. It does take positions on issues, like we have a very strong position, and we are appearing in Jeff City quite a bit this legislative session to support public education. But we do not endorse political parties. We do not endorse candidates. But look at 411.org. And on Sunday, the Post-Dispatch is printing our voter's guide, which is for 5 counties and the city. It's 24 pages long. We're in the midst of doing the final proofs on it. They're going to issue it in the Sunday paper, the 19th, in plenty of time for the election. We also take about 15,000 to 18,000 of these. Our volunteers carry them to libraries, to senior centers. If you want some, let us know, or come to our office and pick them up. We do all of this as volunteers. We do all the research and all the write-ups for it, and the Post produces it. So I think it would be very helpful, and teach the young people and the old people in your life to learn to be an informed voter and to use that. Now, the election is April the 4th, as all of them have said. Polls open at 6 a.m., they close at 7 p.m. please get out and vote. Please care. I know you do because you're here tonight. And finally, I couldn't ask every one of your specific questions, but I hope you recognize that I tried to hit as many serious issues as I could. And some of those specifics, I know that the candidates will be glad to stick around a little bit. That's why we tried to end a little bit early. So you can talk to them if I didn't get to ask your specific question. So thank you very much. I hope you found this to be helpful. Have a good evening.